had built a reputation in the community as a strict but caring educator, often seen patting students on the head, helping widows with school fees, and giving long sermons about discipline at every parent-teacher meeting. But beneath his ironed suits and warm smiles was a darkness no one dared suspect, until little Abeni, a quiet 13-year-old girl with shy eyes and a passion for drawing, came home one afternoon and locked herself in the hut, refusing to eat, her once bright eyes now hollow. Her mother, Mama Ifioma, a vegetable seller, thought it was bullying, maybe trouble with a teacher, but nothing could have prepared her for the truth. It wasn't until she found Abeni's notebook, tucked beneath her mat with trembling drawings of a man behind a desk and a crying girl, that her heart dropped to her feet. The sketches, wordless and trembling, told a story too painful to utter. Her daughter had been harmed deeply and repeatedly, inside the very office that bore the school's emblem of truth and discipline. Horrified, Ifioma ran barefoot to the school the next morning, tears falling like rain, but was met with stiff resistance. Mwanga calmly denied all accusations, warning that false rumors could ruin the lives of innocent educators. The teachers closed ranks. The school secretary, who had seen too much, said nothing. And even the village elders, all of whom owed some favor to the headmaster, urged her to stay quiet, for the sake of the school's reputation. Ifioma was shattered, helpless in a system that protected monsters in polished shoes. But fate has a way of turning silence into storms. Unknown to everyone, a young substitute teacher named Tund, who had recently returned from the city and joined the school, had been observing Mwanga's patterns. Tund had grown suspicious after several girls left the office pale and shaken, and when Abeni's situation came to light, his suspicions turned into a burning mission. Using a hidden phone in his pocket, Tund began recording audio from within the staff room, listening to side conversations and whispers, waiting for evidence. One day, while pretending to deliver files to Mwanga's office, he left a small pinhole camera hidden inside a cracked air freshener. What that camera captured over 3 days would shatter the school's false holiness forever. Meanwhile, Ifioma, determined not to be silenced, traveled to a nearby NGO in the town of Osuna that supported abused children. She spoke her truth to the director, a fierce woman named Mama Zari, who immediately launched an investigation. Back in the school, the students began murmuring. Other girls like Kemi, Aisha, and young Chidinma started sharing quiet stories during break time, of being told to stay after school, of being locked in the office, of being threatened to silence. The air in Wisdom Fountain began to change. Parents noticed their children withdrawing, weeping at night, refusing to go to school. The web of horror began unraveling. But just as the truth crept to the surface, Mwanga sensed danger and began preparing to leave town. He announced his early retirement and organized a farewell ceremony, planning to disappear before the storm hit. Tund knew time was running out. On the day of the farewell event, with the whole village gathered under the school's mango tree, Tund stood up, trembling, holding a USB drive in his hand and a burning determination in his eyes. Before the crowd could applaud Mwanga's great service, Tund inserted the drive into the community projector and played the footage. What they saw made women faint and fathers scream in fury. The headmaster, their trusted man, was caught on tape doing what no one had dared imagine. The crowd erupted into chaos. Mothers stormed the podium. Elders fell silent with shame. Mwanga tried to run, but it was too late. What happened next shook the entire village, and the real storm was just beginning. The crowd was still roaring when Mwanga was dragged off the stage. His once polished shoes kicking up dust as angry fathers held him by the collar, and sobbing mothers threw curses at him, their cries echoing through the school compound like thunder rolling through the heavens. Headmaster Mwanga, the same man who once lectured about virtue and discipline, was now reduced to a trembling shell, exposed for the predator he truly was. The police arrived within the hour, thanks to Mama Zari's quick calls and the growing firestorm on social media. The video Tund had released had already spread beyond the village of Iboko, reaching journalists, NGOs, and child protection agencies across the region. By evening, news vans were parked outside the school, and reporters were questioning trembling students and furious parents. Mwanga was taken into custody, his eyes vacant, no longer the powerful man behind the big wooden desk, but a prisoner of his own evil. But even as he was locked away, the wounds he had left behind bled raw. Girls like Abeni, Kemi, and Aisha could not sleep without trembling, and even the boys began speaking of the strange punishments and humiliations they had faced in the so-called discipline sessions. The village was broken. The school was shut down for 2 weeks while the education board and state officials investigated every file, every teacher, every locked drawer. Mama Ifeoma became the face of a mother's fight, standing on news panels, tearfully narrating how her daughter's silence had exposed a beast. But behind the fame was a shattered woman, trying every night to heal the deep scars left in Abeni's heart. Abeni refused to speak for days, only drawing pictures, this time of broken chains, crying sons and little girls with wings. Mama Zari brought therapists to the village, volunteers who ran group healing sessions for the children. They sang songs, painted walls, planted flowers, and slowly, painfully slowly, the children began to smile again. Tund was offered a position at a new school in the city, but he refused, choosing instead to stay and rebuild Wisdom Fountain from its ashes. "We cannot run from the place we're called to protect," he told the new school board, who named him interim headmaster after Mwanga's arrest. The entire staff was reshuffled. Those who had been complicit by silence or fear were removed. New teachers came in, kind, gentle, and trained in child protection. The school walls were painted with murals designed by the children themselves, art that showed resilience, light, and hope. Abeni painted a large butterfly with her name written in tiny blue letters on the wingtip. It was her way of saying, "I am still here." As the trial began, the courtroom was packed with villagers, journalists, activists, and other silent victims who now found their voices. Mwanga, pale and shaken, was confronted with pages of testimonies, videos, and statements. He tried to deny it all at first, blaming witchcraft, conspiracy, and even claiming that the children were lying, but the evidence was undeniable. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and as the judge pronounced the sentence, a collective breath was released across the courtroom. Justice, slow and painful, had come. But the story didn't end with Mwanga's conviction. Ifeoma, with Mama Zari's guidance, started a community group called Voices of Iboko, a platform where parents, students, and survivors could meet every month to talk, heal, and educate each other. She traveled to neighboring villages, encouraging mothers to talk to their children, to listen when their eyes dimmed, and to always question silence. The school became a symbol of change. Abeni, now speaking in small whispers, stood at the front of the class one day and read a short story she had written, a tale of a bird trapped in a box who learned how to sing again. The entire room wept. Her voice, though soft, carried the strength of 1,000 storms. Tund created a special class called Safe Circles, where students could talk about anything, freely and without fear, under the watch of trained counselors. And for the first time, students no longer flinched when they heard the word Headmaster. They looked at Tund with trust and admiration, not fear. 1 year after the scandal, the school reopened fully with a new name, Freedom Light Academy, and the first class of graduating students wore white ribbons on their arms, a symbol of purity reclaimed, of pain turned into purpose. Abeni walked proudly among them. Her artwork featured in the school's first-ever magazine. As for Mwanga, he faded into the shadows of the prison system, but his fall became a cautionary tale for educators across the nation. No longer would silence be tolerated. No longer would parents bow to authority over their children's cries. The village of Iboko had awakened. The pain had been deep, but the healing was deeper. And as the school bell rang every morning and laughter once again filled the classrooms, one thing became certain: no monster would ever hide behind a desk again. And it all began because one little girl drew a picture. And her mother believed her.